to the Chicago Tomahawk. I'm Mike. I got my line mate Matt with me, and today we've got a buddy of ours from across the world, Blake from Australia. How you doing, man?
Yeah, Mike, doing really well. Thanks and appreciate you guys having me on the pod. I've been
You,
a huge fan for a while now.
it's really cool, man, that you're from Australia and you're a Blackhawks fan. I can honestly say that you are you are the first Blackhawks fan that I know from Australia. When I look at the podcast analytics, it says that there are 17 or 21 people that listen from Australia, which is incredible. I consider you the first one. So, so thank you for listening to us. You know what, man? Tell us how you became a Blackhawks fan.
Yeah, thanks. A really interesting story. So I work in an investment firm, and I live in the state of Queensland in Australia. And one of my colleagues at the time, he had been living in Canada for the last 10 years and married a Canadian girl. And Australia is a big country where everyone loves sport. So obviously there's a lot of banter in the office, back and forth. And he said, Have you ever looked at what the best sport in the world is? And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, ice hockey. And I go, no, I've not really seen ice hockey. I've seen a few fights here and there. I've seen it on TV occasionally, but no, I've never really had a look into it. And he said, mate, it is the fastest and most brutal sport in the world, and you'll love it. And so from there, literally, I was just hooked almost instantaneously. So that night after he sort of introduced me to the sport, and we're talking, this is like mid 2010. So like this is right at the height of the Hawks dynasty, right? And he's a massive Calgary Flames fan because he lived in Calgary and that's where his girl's from. So, yeah, so I started like researching. So from the line of my work, I do a lot of research on different things, and I just started researching, and I just fell in love with the franchise and the original six, the history. I liked the emblem, I liked the colors, I liked the style of play, Taser, Kane, like just some of the players historically as well. Like so, from there, I really just fell in love with the Hawks, and when I get behind something, I'm an all or nothing guy. So for me, I'm all in on the Hawks, and I have been since then. And I do have a soft spot for the Flames, I must admit, but I'm all Hawks, baby.
It's kind of funny. I see things the same way, man. Like I'm all in on the team. Like Matt's like, yeah, these guys are doing really great. I'm like, fuck them. I'm like, I'm a Hawks fan.
I'm on the Flames bus though.
I like, dude, I like the Flames. I mentioned we had another guy on the podcast who covered the Calgary Flames, and I told him, man, I was a big Theoren Fleury fan back in the day. Before they called him Theo, his name's Theoren Fleury, and when I went to my first Blackhawks game, because I played NHL on Sega, so I knew like a lot of the players, from playing the game. And there was this tiny dude in the game. I'm like, man, but this guy's good. So I went to my first Blackhawks game, and it was against the Calgary Flames, and I got to see Theoren Fleury and Joe Nieuwendyk. And he was a little guy, but he was good, man. He was fast. He kept up with everybody, and I was just in love with the team. I honestly believe that they have the best logo in sports. There's something about it that, if you look at, if you look at teams nowadays, like actually, let's use Tampa Bay for example. They have a very modern logo of what they have right now. The bolts, just like the bolt, and like a half circle, around it, and that's pretty much it. I think that it's really clean. I think it's awesome. The Blackhawks, they have like something of like a timeless logo where it's not old, but it's not new. It's like something different. And, I really, really appreciate that. And I love that about the team. You know, the colors are red, white, and black. I mean, can that get any more fucking manly, dude? You know, it's like those are like three awesome colors. I mean, a little white in there to kind of, throw it off a little bit is great. You know, so you could see some blood on your jersey when you have to, throw on the foil.
Hey, did you like the blacks in the 90s?
I did.
I had one, and I'm really considering getting another one. Those were sharp.
It was like they just substituted the black for the red on it, and it looks sick. I couldn't complain about it.
It's like, don't do a lot,
right.
Like Sarah Marshall. No, don't do anything. When he's going on the surfboard, you got to do a little bit, but don't do anything. Don't change that logo, and that's why it's been so great.
Right.
Everything has been the same. I mean, they modified a little bit. I know the Indian head, the crest is kind of minor changes, but I agree with you, man. You can't mess with it. All the best original 6 teams, they don't change their logos at all,
right?
Or their colors.
Boston is another one. It's another one where you look at their logo and it's like, just don't do anything to this. It's perfect. And the Canadians, I mean, actually you mentioned it. The Red Wings, like all of their logos, man, they're timeless.
The stripes and colors, perfect.
Right. So they did something right there.
It's just New York. New York's got to change everything all the time. There's a Statue of Liberty logo there. I mean, it's too much. Way too much.
Yeah, they do. So, have you ever been to a Blackhawks game, Blake?
Never. I've never been to a live ice hockey game in the States over there or in Canada. So that's definitely on the bucket list.
It's even better in person. One thing that I was amazed about, even to this day, is when you're sitting there and you're watching the game, dude. You're like, holy shit, this is fast.
Yeah,
like wow.
That was one question I was going to ask you, because obviously the jumping ahead a little bit, but the hit on Kirby, the hip check there yesterday.
Oh yeah.
I mean, is that something where he could have seen that a bit quicker, or is it just happened so quickly that you got no chance to react?
Did you see him leave his feet? He was bracing. He was bracing for that hit, and Kirby got a little error, and it made it easier for Gudis to do that. But you know what? You don't see hits like that in games when you go. So when you do see it, you're like, holy shit! You're like, this is awesome. I mean, you don't want to see your guy get hurt, but it was a pretty vicious, entertaining hit.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, especially in the NHL, it's so fast. I don't think that you can, like Radko Gudas, when you see him, you're like, okay, he's coming in for a hit, But if it's like, Sidney Crosby, he's not going to come in and hip check you. So, but yeah, man, it's an incredibly fast game. When you go to have you ever been to a baseball game? Okay. I'm trying to think have you ever been to an American football game?
No.
What about a soccer game or football?
Been to a lot of soccer or football, cricket. So all the Australian sports, really. Okay. Been to plenty.
Yeah, like soccer, it's like you can sit there and like have a conversation with somebody, but when it comes to like hockey, you can't just sit there and kind of just shoot the breeze with somebody. I mean, you can, but most of the time you're kind of just like talking in the direction towards the ice. And you're not really sitting there like having a conversation with somebody, unless you're not going to pay attention to the game. But it's awesome. If you ever come to the States, dude, I'll hook you up with some tickets to a Blackhawks game.
Oh, we're going with them.
Yeah,
we're
I'm there.
I'll hook you up with some tickets.
We're bringing them.
So Blake, the Blackhawks have obviously, you've seen them at their height of what they are. Me personally, me and Matt, we've seen them lose a hell of a lot more during our time in the fandom than win. So what's going on right now is to be honest with you, just old times. But what do you think from looking out from the outside perspective, what do you think the Blackhawks, their direction right now as a team, are their main points that they need to hit in the offseason?
I think the focus still needs to be on the futures. I don't think this team is a couple of moves away from competing, even for a playoff spot, really. I know Kaner is still elite. He's a top 5 right winger in the league. He's probably the best passer in the league. I mean, Taser's lost a notch. The Cat is, again, he's a top 5 goal scorer, so he's a pure sniper. Goaltending is a serious issue, and it has been for a while since Crow left. Seth Jones has been really, really good for my liking. I was a bit dubious initially when the trade went down, but I think he's been really good. Yeah, sure, the cap hit is not favourable for Chicago, but overall, I think his on ice play has been really, really good. And we've got some good young guys coming through. I mean, I like Kirby Dack. A lot of the fans are sort of quick to sort of write him off. I just feel it's too soon to be giving him a pure verdict, just purely because I feel he was rushed. He was chucked into the deep end too quick. Stan Bowman was building this guy up on a massive pedestal to really fail, unfortunately, because as we all know now, particularly, JC wasn't the man for the job. Yeah. And I mean, I felt that from early days. I didn't feel it. He didn't have the right vibe, the charisma, everything like that. He just didn't seem like the right coach that we needed at the time. And particularly coming from Coach Q, man, like that guy was the man. And so that was a big changing. And I think now we just really need to build up that pool. I was sad to see Hagel go, but what we got back in return, you can't say no to that.
Right.
You honestly, I don't know what you guys think, but you can't say no to that. 2 firsts, 2 good, solid players. Radish has even potential top 6 ability. I don't think Kachuk does, but I mean, the jury's still out. We've only seen small sample size, but Radish, in his short sample size, I've been really impressed.
I had to agree with you 100% on there. And to be honest with you, when I see Radish, I'm actually thinking like, hey, you know what? Maybe this is a guy who could play with Jonathan Taves because, ever since Hossa left, he hasn't been able to have 2 solid wingmates that can complement his game, which is unfortunate. Going forward, I agree with you 100%. I think that the goalie position is definitely one that needs to be looked at. And there needs to be a priority towards it because where are we at with Lankinen? Because this season has been somewhat of a waste for him. He was supposed to be a 1B and he ended up being, a second thought. And that wasn't good for his development. I think it's good that he got to see how Fleury got to go about his business day to day. But Lankinen, I don't think he had the opportunity to go out, make mistakes, and come back and get some tutelage from Fleury. Matt, how do you feel about the goaltending situation?
Well, yeah, like I said before, it's tough. You're sitting behind Fleury pretty much majority of the year. You get an occasional start every 2 weeks maybe, and then once you get going, yeah. And then once you get going, you get hurt, and then you're out again. Then you got to rehab to get back, and it's not easy to do. I mean, Fleury was great for us, the fans, to see this guy, but it definitely hurt Lankinen's development. So I agree with Blake. We need to address the goaltending, and I think goaltending and the coaching staff is the main priority for the offseason. This has to get figured out, I think. Today is a big test for Lankinen. He's playing against a very, very, very good team. They could three-peat. That's how good they are. And currently, right now, they are beating us 4-2. And he's kind of all over the place lately. He's not square to the shooter. He kind of is looking like Subban lately. He'll make a nice save, and he gets caught swimming, or he overplays a shot too much. And I hate to jump back to that Buffalo game, but I will. The game-winning goal, I watched that clip at least 15 times as a goalie, and I watched it. And you know what? I hate to blame him on that because it's very fluky, but what he did was wrong. He turned his back, pivoting the wrong way, and his back was turned against the puck. If he would have turned straight, going into the post, like meaning his stick side, leading with his stick, he could have prevented that puck from coming to the front, and it's an easy freeze right there. Take the face off, you're in overtime. I know the game doesn't matter, but these are the little things you have to do as a starting goalie. You don't see goalies like Vasilevsky giving goals up like that, ever. He's just too good. Or even Bobrovsky, he's been really good. They don't let up goals like that, and Lakeinen is just he's got to get it together very soon because they're gonna move on from him. I think if he's still this letting up softies every game, it's got to stop.
You know, talking about Vasilevsky, has the guy even been out of position once this entire year? The guy just tracks the plays, so well, moves post to post, and is just so engaged that it's it's hard to get pucks by him.
Well, yeah, and you see the guy, he never quits on anything. Even like say there's a cross-ice pass, say like a DeBrincat's waiting for that tap-in. I've seen him put his glove behind his back. You ever see that save, behind the back? And he'll stop it. And it's like unbelievable. This guy has no quit in him. And I just feel like he separates himself from the other goalies in this league just because his compete level is amazing.
Totally agree. He's the best in the world. He is absolutely the best in the world. There is no denying that. And I mean, we can't expect the Hawks to go out and get a guy like that. But I mean, are we looking to build someone up? Do we have Soderblom, he's still a couple of seasons away. Comesso, he's just coming out of college. He's probably still got another year in college, maybe even before AHL. So we need to find a guy who can sort of just be a transitional goalie, because I think the management have faith in those younger guys. But do we go out and get like a Corpi from Columbus in the offseason as a free agency, and he's there in transitional, and just keep Lanks as a backup?
Yeah, like a 1B.
Yeah.
You know, I think the main problem here is that the Blackhawks, they need like a two-staged approach, because they need like a place setter in goal so that the younger guys can have time to develop. You know, they need a coach that can mentor a young team and move them into the next stage to get them competitive. And then they need a coach that can win a Stanley Cup. And those are two very different guys. And the thing is that you can't move on from somebody, just because you've hit the next stage. You're like, hey, we got it here. And how many guys, make it to that mid stage and they never make it past that, And I think that's a significant problem. Me and Matt talk, and I want to find the next good head coach in the NHL that is not in the NHL yet, because a lot of these coaches kind of go around, they circle around to other places, and they kind of do the same thing there, and they never win the chip. And these guys are always, like kind of like a fraternity of coaches. It seems like, in a way. I want a younger guy, I guess he doesn't have to be a younger guy, but I mean, just somebody who's new with some different perspectives and ideas that comes in and says, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what everybody else is doing. This is how we defend against it. And this is how we can score against these type of teams. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's not we get a new goalie, we get a new center, and we get a new coach, and that fixes the problem. It almost seems like it's a multi-tiered project to get the team to that point.
Yeah, well, you just got to look at what St. Louis has done over at the Canadiens, Bednar at the Avs, Brindamore at the Hurricanes. I mean, they've built those teams, and St. Louis has looked good for the Canadiens.
I think the Hawks need to find a young assistant coach on a very successful team that's never got the shot. That's what I'd be kind of poaching other teams. Like, I mean, quite honestly, I don't know who's an assistant coach for Tampa or even Vegas, somebody like that's been successful over the years. That, he's a good assistant coach, but he's just never got that shot. Maybe Davison will go down that path. And as for him with goaltending, I think he's going to be really busy this draft finding a goalie, and I think he's going to want to put his footprint on this team and kind of get rid of Bowman's, I guess, baggage. Like, he wants to, kind of like when Stan Bowman took over from Dale Talon, he kind of changed stuff up a little bit. And you know what? I give him credit. He got rid of a lot of guys. I know he had some cap issues, but he retooled and he won 2 more cups. So I got to give him credit for that. Dale Talon is 100% 2010. That was all Dale.
100%.
So, but I give Bowman credit for that. He did make some very stupid trades in his tenure here, but It's hard to do. I mean, when you're up against the cap, you got guys making big bucks, and he still, he brought in guys like Ray Emery. I think was one of the best moves he's ever had, one of the best backup goalies we've ever had. But,
what a warrior!
Yeah, great guy, amazing competitor. I think he made Crawford an even better goalie.
He did, definitely. I think his compete level raised Crawford's compete level.
Yeah, and if Crawford took some nights off, we're comfortable with Razor, and Crawford didn't want to lose his job. So
right.
he upped his game as well. But going back to Davison, I think he's going to probably... I could see him moving up in the draft. I can honestly see him taking one of those Tampa picks to move closer this year if he really likes a guy. But there is a lot of uncertainty in this draft because it's been like the 2 COVID years, and that you didn't really get a good kids playing games. They weren't really playing, like, even last year it was just developmental stuff. Like, it was the Olympic type of teams, the country teams. There wasn't any OHL, there wasn't any other leagues. So I think Davidson has his work cut out for him, but I could see him definitely grabbing a couple goalies his first year at the draft.
You could even make a case for, saying, hey, you know what, we're going to sit back on this draft because we don't really know what's going to happen in this one, and let's attack the next one. And then just to play devil's advocate, maybe you could take advantage of this draft because people don't know who these, what they're really getting with these players, and you move up to take somebody that somebody wasn't looking at, and he turns into the next, Mo Sider or something.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not accurate, these draft reports, because, like, how many games have these guys played? And, I mean, some of them lost 2 years of hockey, and it could be a fluke. Maybe one guy had a really good season, and he's really not that good. And there's another guy who had say 5 goals and, 20 assists, and he's not that good, but he really is. So you never know what you're going to get.
Don't forget.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it almost felt like management and Davidson were focusing on the 23 draft with some of the moves we made at the deadline, or didn't move. In fact, I mean, we didn't move DeHaan, we didn't move some of the other guys, we didn't move Kubalik. These are guys who could have netted us pretty decent picks, you know what I mean? But I think because our first rounder is headed towards Columbus this year, I think he wanted to make that as high as possible. So that we definitely don't get it, and our focus can be on 23, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I could see him using that pick we got from Hagel, maybe with a guy like Kubalik and DeHaan, to move up top 10 in the draft, somebody who maybe is interested, even somebody even better, like Dylan Strome's rights or something. I mean, I could definitely, I wouldn't leave it out of the equation. I mean, if you can get a move up in the draft, do it. I think Davidson did well, though. I mean, for me and Mike were surprised. I know I couldn't believe he got potentially 3 first-round picks, right? With Fleury, if they make the Western
Conference Finals. Yeah, I was just going to mention that. That'd
be huge. I know they're higher picks, but when you're rebuilding, that's huge, man. That's huge.
It's like I'm going to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde during the playoffs because I'm going to be rooting for Minnesota to lose because I hate Minnesota, but then I'm going to want them to win so we can get that first-round draft pick.
Well, they just have to make it there, right? They don't have to win the Western Conference.
They just have to make it to the Western Conference Finals.
They could. The Fleury could carry them there. You never know. I think
isn't Nathan McKinnon injured right now because he got into a fight?
He fought Matt Dumba, actually, from Minnesota. It's funny we're talking about it. It's a small world, but he came back. He missed 1 game after that fight, but it's insane why that guy is fighting at this time of the year right now. Are you kidding me? I'd take him if I'm Sakic. Taking him to a private room, dude, what are you doing? You're our best player. Why are you dropping the gloves? And then I would say McKinnon, that's why we need to bring the enforcer back. That's what I would say.
Yeah, it's like this guy shouldn't be having to do that. But you know what? I get it, man. It's like the guy, he plays every game like it's his last. He's a hyper competitor. I get it. And you know what, man? It's really hard to tell someone like, hey, man, can you bring your compete level down? And it's like, dude, this is the way that I play. If this guy's being a dick, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to let him know that I don't like it, and he's got a letter on his sweater. So, I mean, he's doing something right.
Well, even Matt Dumba, if I'm Minnesota, why are you fighting? You're one of our best defensemen. Come on, man. We're trying to make the playoffs. We just got Marc-Andre Fleury to get us over that hump. Why are you fighting?
Right.
So it's just crazy. When you see 2 star kind of players fight like this.
I think it was because McKinnon didn't like the hit that Dumba delivered.
Well, yeah, sometimes, I mean, quite honestly, if this was the 90s and Kirby Dach got hit like yesterday, Bob Probert would have ripped that guy's beard off of his face yesterday.
Yeah, he would have.
So, I mean, that's just how different it is now. Like, honestly,
Stu Grimson would have been going down the line on the bench.
Stu Grimson's
anybody.
mitts are the size of you. Do you see that guy's hands? Like, he would put that hand right through that guy's face if he touched a young player like that. The Hawks don't have that. They haven't had that since the 90s.
I'll tell you what, man. When I think of Stu Grimson, you got to think of one thing. The reason that he was on the Blackhawks was because they needed somebody to fight Bob Probert. If you are that guy, I mean, you're one of the baddest dudes in the league. If your sole purpose is to be out there because Bob Probert's out there, because Proby.
How do you think he felt? Like, hey, yeah, we need you to go against Proby at least 12 times a year. Oh, okay. I'm a graduate of. He's like an Ivy League guy.
He's like, okay, well, Proby typically likes to throw 3 left hands and then an uppercut. So he probably looked at it from more of an analytical perspective because, Grimson's such a smart guy. But he's a great analyst, man. I love seeing him on TV.
Do you get to see him, Blake? Stu Grimson?
Yeah, I get little bits and pieces over here. So it sort of cuts out for a lot of the ad breaks. So we only just get like little snippets and we don't get to see the ads from
he's the best one this season, and he's only been doing it like, 4 or 5 games, Mike?
Yeah, so Blake, Stu Grimson back in the 90s, early 90s was a Blackhawks player. He wore number 23. I remember this because I was like, okay, Michael Jordan wears number 23 for the Bulls. Who wears number 23 for the Blackhawks? And my uncle's like, Stu Grimson. I'm like, oh, he must be really good because he wears number 23. He's like, he's good. But Stu Grimson, dude, was a complete maniac, man. But he is such when you see him, you're like, is this the same player? Is this the same guy who was practically shirtless, trying to grab anybody he could to get at Wendell Clark during the what was that, the St. Patrick's Day massacre or something? And he just went completely insane. And he was a tough guy, but then you see him on TV, man, and he's just so articulate. He's great. He's great. And he's a great analyst. So they're doing a good job bringing this guy back in. He's an ex-Hawk. So ironically, he fought Probert when Probert played for Detroit and he played for the Blackhawks. And then later on in his career, he fought Probert as a member of the Red Wings when Probert was on the Blackhawks. So, a little trivia there for you. Yeah. If you're ever at a bar and they're doing Blackhawks trivia and you could win.
When you were saying he's probably studying the hits, and then let's say one of the Hawks players walks in. Hey, it doesn't matter. He's so out of it right now. You can hit him with 5 rights to the face. Probert's still going to come at you.
Right. So essentially, I would say that Probert is a fan favorite type of guy because of who he was, back when he played, and he's a really likable guy. Just watching him on TV. So Blake, do you play like any sports on your free time? Do you like to play do you like any roller hockey or anything?
I'd love to, but I work a lot, so time doesn't really allow me. And any like I've had injuries in the past, so it takes a lot from work, and I've got a lot going on, so it's difficult for me to sort of run that risk reward. But I do love it. I follow it. I used to play a lot of different and varying sports when I was younger, but now not so much, unfortunately.
Cool, man. So, do you have any predictions for next season? Hawks are they going to be middle of the pack? Maybe finish at the end again? Are they going to surprise some people and maybe play for a wild card?
Nah, I'm sorry. I honestly think we're going to be a top 10 pick again. We got to be real. That's where we're going. We're rebuilding. I mean, I don't even know whether Taser's going to be there next season. I don't know whether Kane is going to be there next season.
I think Kane will.
I would love them to be there.
I think Taves will be back too. But yeah. Actually, I'm going to put my stamp on it. Taves is going to be back next year. Me and Matt have been going back and forth on, what kind of contracts they're going to sign, when they get the opportunity, because this summer they get an opportunity to extend. Do you think that the Blackhawks are going to extend them both, or just Kane, or what do you think is going to happen?
Depending on what the players want, but if I was in Davidson's shoes, yes, I would be. But I've heard what you guys have been saying on the podcast. I don't necessarily agree that they're going to get the same contract. And hear me out. The reason for that is because Taser missed an entire season.
Yeah.
So we paid him his 10 mil for a whole year. So I think if I'm in a management position, this is coming from my business side of things, I'd be going to him and saying, mate, we paid you for a whole year and you didn't play for us. So Kane is going to get his 9 million or whatever we're going to give him, and we're going to give you your 5-6 million over the same period because we've paid you with that money and you didn't play for us. And I know he's a leader in the locker room, and I know he's won the cups and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's also a business. So that's where I'd be coming from.
It's funny. Taves also can come right back and say, how much money have you made off of the jerseys that I've sold? How much money have you guys made from the Stanley Cups that I won, over the past 10 years? I'm sure it's a lot more than the 84 million that you've paid me. So in a sense,
yeah, good point.
We can just call it even.
We'll call it even. Yeah.
I mean, I did my job, and on the other end, you guys did your job by paying me what I was worth. And
how does Kane react to that?
Yeah, I mean, Kane, to be honest with you, I think Kane is a rink rat, and he doesn't really get into the business side of things. He doesn't seem like the type of guy who's like, why is he making $500,000 more than I am? I think that he's more interested in the what's on the ice type of a thing.
Yeah, clearly. I agree. I think Kane. I think
he's not Evander Kane, we should say,
or he's not in the NFL, like where he looks at somebody else.
Right.
Why do I get this? He's getting that. Well, dude, you signed 4 years ago. He signed this year. The market's different. So
fuck it.
Calm down.
I'm sitting out.
Yeah, exactly. I hate that crap, man. That's garbage. But I think that Kane, if they said, "Hey, Kaner, we want you here, but you know what? This rebuilding." We need you to take a pretty good discount. And I know Kane he doesn't care about the money anymore, dude. He's like you said, he's a rink rat. This is his life. Yeah. I think he just wants to be out there with the boys, living the hockey life. And I could see him another 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 million, like even 6. But if Taves is looking to get paid, I think that would be nuts.
Yeah, I think it would too. I don't think that he is. But I mean, they've both made over 100 million so far, which
probably
is
more than that because they got the Chevy, all the Chevy.
Oh no, what I mean by NHL contracts.
Yeah,
they've made they've made about 100 million, about maybe 105 million so far from their contracts. I don't think that if you told Taves like, hey, look, man, we're looking to rebuild this thing, to have a chance for maybe your last season, we'll take a run at it, but we need some cap space. I think that he might be willing to do that.
I hope so because he's like, Steve Yzerman with Detroit.
I think that matters to him.
You know what's crazy? They're both number 19. They were both captains very early. They both got cups. They both got Selkies. They've been very good. And even Joe Sakic, he spent this the whole time. I know they were the Nordiques and then they went over to Colorado, but another number 19 center captain. Right. So I hope he stays. I don't want him. It'd be so weird watching him in a Winnipeg Jets jersey because that's the only team I could see him going to, quite honestly. But I hope so. I know I disagree with what he's been saying lately. He's been, like you said, he's emotional. He's kind of getting frustrated with the rebuilding and all the changes and the inconsistent playing and maybe the coaching changes and all the crap that's happened this year. And I don't blame him. It sucks. But you know what? You're a leader, and these young guys need you. They can learn a lot. Quite honestly, if the Cat is in the plans, I'd like to see him at the max level he can take for term-wise. Hopefully a $10 million, $9 million deal would be great. And I'd like to see him get the C, and I'd like to see Taves and Kane get the A, and Taves, like just kind of slowly passed the torch to him. Like, hey, this is what you got to do when you're the captain.
You know what, man? I think if anything happens, like Taves retires, and even if Kane has 1 year left, I think that they would give him the C out of respect.
It would be classy, and I wouldn't mind that at all.
Taking into consideration how much he's played, how consistent he's been. He's always been there. It took him a long time to get a letter because, we had established leaders here for so long. And I think that if anything, that Patrick Kane would deserve, I think that he would deserve the C. I think DeBrincat would say, no, I can't do that. Not while Kaner's
that'd be
still
classy.
here,
Yeah.
I know when Kane was named captain of the Olympic team, I'm pretty sure he was. I know he was pumped, man. And
he was.
He was the older guy, and he really took a lot of pride in that. It would be pretty cool to see him wear a C. I would not mind that at all.
Well, he plays. He's played in the right before COVID.
Yeah,
he was playing during the summer times in the tournaments, and he was a captain, man. And the guy just always shows up.
You know what? He probably was a captain on every youth team growing up because he was so good.
Yeah.
And then he gets to the NHL, and of course he gets drafted after Taves, and Taves is just a natural born leader.
Yeah.
He's like, damn, I'm never gonna get the C, but I'm gonna get the game winning goal and in the Stanley Cup, the first one in like 50 something years, 49 years or whatever. So.
Oh man, you know what? If they make it back to the playoffs and he's still on the team, he's got to bring that mullet back, man, because every time he did it, they won a cup, man. We had the lines on the sides, the steps on the side.
I think you should just do it anyway. He pulls it off.
Well, cool. Well, Blake, man, why don't you give everyone, like if you want them to follow you on Twitter, if you're trying to bring any awareness to your Twitter, or if there's any organizations that you want to bring some awareness to, why don't you feel free to share it?
You can follow me on the Twitter. I think my handle is at Blake R. Murray, I believe. But other than that, that's where you can find me if you have any questions or want to chat to me. I'm always chatting sport, always chatting a lot of Blackhawks, so happy to get involved.
I think that I'm going to start if I ever see it on TV, I'm gonna take a look at cricket, dude, and then I'll get back to you because I'm always willing to get into new stuff. I've been getting into rugby and how absolutely savage of a sport that it is.
Yeah. Well, in the words
very
of
much a
Raphael,
sport you should look at. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, too. I was just saying, in the words of Raphael, the Ninja Turtle, cricket, you should call it crumpet, or whatever he says. I was just dying when he said that. 1990 Ninja Turtles.
Thanks,
Casey
Matt.
Jones pulls out the cricket.
Yeah.
Cricket?
Well, cricket is
you got to know what a crumpet is. Yeah.
Go ahead, Blake.
Some great sports over here. So AFL is another great sport you can look at for sure.
So are the main sports in Australia cricket, and what else do you guys have?
AFL.
Okay. Is that like the Australian Football League?
Yeah, it's Aussie rules, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, massive. It's the biggest sport over here.
Is it like American football?
It's like that. It's only that country, but it's completely different sport. There's a lot of kicking. That's why a lot of the punters from AFL, they go over to the NFL as the punters because we can kick so far.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that where they put say you score? Is that where they put the ball like towards like the right side of the field and try to kick it through the uprights?
No, so that's rugby league. That's another sport.
Okay.
So it's similar to rugby. AFL, if you kick a goal, the ball goes right into the middle, and it's what they call like a centre bounce, but a bit like hockey. So it goes to the centre, and it's a duel off to see who gets the ball.
Wow.
Interesting.
Well, cool, man. I want to thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Most importantly, we really appreciate you've been following us for a really, really long time, man. We really appreciate that. Obviously we've been doing this, for about 15 months now, and you've been with us since the beginning. I remember you messaging us and, commenting and stuff. And I just want to let you know that from me and Matt, we really, really appreciate that. And,
Thank you, buddy.
If you tell anybody about us in Australia, because I think if it's spreading in Australia, it's probably because of you.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got a few friends who follow hockey. I've only got one other Blackhawk fan, but he's tied up with family all the time, so it's difficult for him to watch games. But yeah, no, definitely spreading the words. Appreciate you guys allowing me on to today, and I feel privileged. Thanks again.
All right, man. Thanks again, man, for coming on. And catch us on the next one. This is the Tomahawk, and we're out of here.